Hello, everybody, and welcome to Monday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. John Schmeelk, Lance Medow with you. The phone number is 201, there it is, 939-4513. Pearson Butler will be screening your calls, talking Giants football for the duration of the next hour. Lance, obviously a dispiriting, dominant performance by the Dallas Cowboys. They defeat the Giants 49-17, a dispiriting loss. And look, I don't think there's much to break down in terms of the X's and O's in this one. I'll just say it's simple. Dallas was the much better team on both sides of the ball. They dominated up front on both sides of the ball. And I rewatched the game this morning. DeVito did not have a lot of time to throw the ball. When he did, nobody was really open. And that didn't happen very often in terms of him having time to throw it. And going into this game, when we talked about a path to victory for the Giants, it was pretty simple. Play really good defense. Run the football well with Saquon Barkley. Limit the exposure of Tommy DeVito to one of the most opportunistic and best pass defenses in the league in Dallas. And in the first half, the Giants proceeded to give up 28 points. Saquon Barkley rushed 7 times for 1 yard. And that was the exact opposite of what possibly could have happened in this game if the Giants wanted a chance to win. So based on how that went, the result is unfortunately not that surprising, because what the Giants had to do well in this game in order to win, they failed at the worst possible times and at the highest possible level.
Yeah, they dug themselves in an early hole. And when you spot the Cowboys a double-digit lead, you really don't have much of a chance, especially based on how this team is built and constructed. They had 1 first down in the entire first half. I mean, if that doesn't tell you the whole story, I don't know what does.
20 first downs to 1 in the first half
Plus
of this
19
game.
Right there. Just couldn't move the ball, couldn't run the ball on early downs. That, to me, was the absolute backbreaker, because you look at the third downs, they were 0 for 12 in the entire game. They did not convert 1 third down in this game, which is hard to believe on any level of football. But that was the reality of the circumstance. And normally, you could face a bunch of third and manageables, and hey, maybe you don't get push up front. It is what it is. But the Giants were facing third and longs throughout this game. 9 of their 12 third downs were for 8 yards or more. Those are not manageable downs. And they put themselves in that spot because, once again, they could not run the ball on early downs. And also, even when they couldn't run it, you had some sense of a negative play. And to me, the drive or the possession, if you want to word it, when you got the interception off of Dak Prescott and you got the ball at the 12-yard line, it didn't seem like it. It was still only a 7-0 game at that point. And I'm not saying that if the Giants score that they're winning the game, because I think as we mapped out leading into this contest, I really don't think the result is that surprising given where both of these teams are on opposite ends of the spectrum and how the Week 1 game went too. Let's not forget.
And frankly, all the bodies the Giants lost over the course of the game.
Absolutely.
Too.
But I mean, even if they were fully healthy, there's still a significant edge.
It was a very
for the Dallas Cowboys.
Steep mountain to climb.
Correct.
That is for sure.
But the one possession in this game where there was an opportunity to make some inroad was when you pick off Dak, and now you're not putting your offense, John, in a position where they have to go 80, 85 yards. You get the ball on the Dallas 12, and unfortunately, they ultimately turned it over on downs on that 4th and 2 play when they ran it with Saquon Barkley, and he pretty much ran into a brick wall. But if you go back to the earlier downs, you had an incomplete pass to Lawrence Canger. Okay, so now it's 2nd and 10.
And that was, just to give fans an idea, the Giants went 13 personnel on that play. So they put big people in the game. They ran a play-action pass. So thinking the Cowboys would anticipate a first down run there, which, frankly, they had been doing for most of the game.
Sure.
You try to set up a matchup, and then Lawrence Cager did not do a great job, in my opinion, fighting with Jordan Lewis on the sideline for position. He kind of just let Lewis get in front of him, and that, frankly, that should have been an interception.
Oh, absolutely.
It went right through Lewis's hands.
Off the fingertips.
Yep.
So that was a gift right there. Okay, but you're still alive. Then you do run the ball. Barkley picks up 2.
That was a wildcat play.
3rd and 8 now. And Tommy DeVito ultimately scrambled up the gut for 6. So I don't think anybody should question. You're not taking the field goal there, okay? You're not beating the Cowboys with 3 points.
And by the way, on that 3rd and 8 to play, I have all my notes here when I rewatched the game on tape this morning. DeVito hits the top of his drop. No one's open, and pressure's in his face already. So there was no. It's basically, for the fans that know this type of stuff, it's a classic mesh concept. So basically, you send 2 shallow crossers across, trying to set natural picks and stuff like that.
Sure.
And by the time the guys were even getting to each other to turn around to look for the ball, DeVito's already running for his life on the play. So there just wasn't much there in terms of guys being open when the pressure got there, and the pressure, again, got there way too quick. Go ahead.
Well, if you look at that run play, no, it's fine. The context is helpful. He basically put himself into a rhino position. He put his head down, and, I mean, the defenders were there. He was just trying to bulldoze his way forward. The fact that he got 6 on that play was quite an accomplishment.
And looking at that play again, Lance, and we saw the Giants run this play earlier in the year, and I think it was the same play. Do you remember the play earlier in the year where the quarterback almost has the triple option on the play, right? So it's almost a read option combination RPO, where he can hand it off to Barkley, run it himself, or keep it and then throw it into the flat.
Yeah.
We saw the Giants have run that before. I'm pretty sure, based on looking at the tape, that's what the play was. So as DeVito gets the ball, he's looking to hand it off, and I'm trying to remember who the defender was coming down on the play. I think it was Malik Hooker, but as DeVito is at the mesh point with Barkley, deciding whether or not to keep it or hand it off, he's reading the zone play is to the right, the zone run, and he's reading the 2 outside players on the defense's right, the offense's left. So he's basically handing it to the right, looking to the left, because if those players crash down on the run, he can keep it and run or keep it and run out and throw the pass. The problem is that, and again, I think it was Malik Hooker. I'd have to double check who the player was coming down on him. But the Cowboys safety coming off that edge was literally beelining for Tommy DeVito on the play. So if DeVito keeps the ball and tries to run it, he gets smashed. If he keeps it and tries to throw it, Paris Campbell is open in the flat on that play. I'm honestly not sure if he keeps the ball, if there's even time for him to pull it in and make that throw. That's how quick the defender was crashing down on him when you take a look at that play again. So I think DeVito actually made the right read in handing it off. And on that play,
there seemed to be a bit of hesitancy, though, if you watched the initial play. It looked as if, to me, at least, that he was wanting to keep it, and then all of a sudden, like, Barkley just took it. I don't know. That's how I viewed it initially.
Well, yeah. I think you're right, because I think he's holding it as long as possible to see what those outside backers and the safety
the very last second
are going to do, right?
And then Barkley took it, and then it went from there.
Right,
yeah.
And there could have been some room on the play, but much like there was early in the game when the Giants kind of got backed up inside their own 5 on a couple of those Cowboys punts, the offensive line just did not block the guys they needed to block, and they just got no push in that entire first half.
Well, he was lucky he wasn't tackled for a safety on 2 consecutive plays, Barkley. That was after the goal line stand.
Yep.
Because you could argue, it was a great goal line stand, but it actually put the offense in worse position because their back is against the end zone where you've got these Dallas pass rushers anticipating you're going to run and ready to feast.
I mean, I'm going to give you an example on a play when I talk about the Giants losing up front. I really think that was an underrated thing here. The Cowboys had 5 sacks, but the pressure was worse than that. There was a play here. It was the Giants' second possession. It was a 3rd and 12 after one of those Barkley runs for a loss. It was a 3-yard loss on 2nd and 9, so it's 3rd and 12. So the Giants have 2 tight ends in the game, and they have a running back. So it's 12 personnel, right? They go back to throw. The Giants keep 8 players into block, Lance. 8. Both tight ends and the running back. The Cowboys rush 5. 8 guys to block 5. They literally run both their outside receivers on go routes. All right? Right call. Cowboys are in cover 3. You basically have man-on-man coverage on 2 go routes outside. The second time DeVito gets to the top of his drop, Micah Parsons had come around on a stunt, and if Tommy DeVito doesn't tuck the ball and step up in the pocket to avoid the rush, it's going to be a safety. So even when they're trying to max protect to get a shot play with 8 guys blocking 5, they cannot protect long enough for DeVito to get the ball off.
And Sam Williams got the sack on that play that you're ultimately referring to.
They actually had 6 guys at the line, and they actually kind of held Sam Williams back as almost a spy on that play, so in case DeVito did try to scramble like he did,
he was right there.
He would be able to step up and make the play, which is exactly why I think they ran it the way they did. DeVito maybe after he stepped up after the initial Parsons pressure could have, chucked it deep on the run from the end zone. That's asking a lot from an undrafted rookie free agent. So there's...
Plus, who's to say they get the first down, too?
Oh, no,
if he gets rid of the football.
And by the way...
it's 3rd and 12 here, remember.
And by the way, the 2 guys running deep down the sideline, they weren't open. It would have been like 50-50 balls. It's not like they had steps on the guys going deep or anything like that. So, it was just, I thought, those couple plays were emblematic of when the Giants did try to throw the ball down the field, their protection was not good enough to allow it. And a couple times were guys that were open that they could have gotten it to if they protected long enough. Wanda Robinson on crosser on one. You had another one I think it was Darius Slayton come across on a deep cross, and they just did not protect well enough to allow those plays to develop. And when that happens, then you can't run the ball. To your point, they had a good running series in the second half when they scored their first touchdown of the game on the Giants' second drive of the second half when they got off to the edge a couple times. But other than that, the offense could not get anything going against one of the top defenses in the league. And by the way, we've seen this Cowboy defense do this against other teams too. This is not just the Giants. Look at the game they played against the Jets. They shut the Jets down in that game.
The Rams
is another game, exactly. So it's just a deal where, you couldn't get stops early. You couldn't run the ball early, and then you're in a must-pass situation with a banged-up offensive line. Andrew Thomas left the game, came back. You didn't have your right tackle, Evan Neal. Tyree Phillips gave up a couple sacks in the game. And you're just not – it's not going to go well when that's the situation you put yourself into.
Yeah, not when you go up against a defensive line that has so much depth and versatility and is very effective with the stunts and the twists, as we've talked about this all the time with respect to the Cowboys. It's been the Achilles heel of that Giants offensive line. The trenches defines this matchups. It's defined this matchup going back till 2017. I mean, the Cowboys have beaten the Giants 13 of the last 14.
And the Giants have been on the wrong side of that.
Yeah, and every game you could point to, John, it comes back to the defensive and offensive line. So, I mean, what transpired, once again, I don't think was a stunning development. It's just you're asking the Giants to play as close to perfection as humanly possible, and that's just not feasible. Because
especially with your third-string quarterback in the game.
There always needs to be some room for margin in any given football game because you're not going to run every play perfectly. There's going to be some negative plays. You're going to lose the battles to the defensive line. It's expected. But with the Giants, I mean, you don't have the ability for anything like that to happen because in the blink of an eye, you get down 2 touchdowns. You don't think Dan Quinn now knows exactly what's going to happen? Whether you have confidence in Tommy DeVito or not, you're asking him to throw the football consistently. And Dallas then loves that situation. Because here's the crazy thing about the Cowboys. Micah Parsons did not have an electric game.
Lance, right? He didn't have a tackle or a sack.
But even if you just look at the box score, that's fine. But even if you watch the optics, there are things he does to, of course, open and help out teammates. So it's not as if he didn't play a good game. But,
and he was in the backfield getting pressure, things like that.
But it just goes to show you that they don't need him to dominate, John. Yet they still have a dominating performance as a team. That's my point I was getting at.
And I think you make a good one because you look at Dexter Lawrence in this game, and if you watch the game, Dexter Lawrence, he in the stat sheet, 5 tackles, no sacks, right?
Yeah.
He did have 2 quarterback hits to lead the team. Giants had 4 quarterback hits in the game.
And he had a big hit on Dak on a completion to Brandon Cooks.
What a throw on that play by Dak
tremendous
Prescott,
throw, pocket presence,
Yeah, but Dexter impacted the game. He just didn't get sacks. But, he was in the backfield.
Oh, yeah.
He was moving guys. He played really well. You look at his PFF defensive grade, for the people that care about that, it was 91. The problem is that where was everybody else? There was no one else getting consistent pressure on the quarterback. Then you lose Deonte Banks. You lose Cordell Flott. The minute Darnay Holmes goes in the game, it's like a huge red siren goes off in the slot. They start attacking him with CeeDee Lamb. And then at that point, the Giants were down their top 3 corners, right? Because Adoree Jackson was out heading into the game. They attack Trey Hawkins over the top with Michael Gallup, and they just didn't have an answer for Dak Prescott. And the Cowboys didn't run the ball great. They were okay in the game. But
they
the times
picked their spots
where they ran the ball well, quite frankly, it was when Dexter and A'Shaun weren't in the game. When Dexter Lawrence and A'Shaun Robinson were in there, the Cowboys didn't run the ball well. But when they caught DJ Davidson in there, when they caught Nacho in there, it was a little bit of a different story with the run game, at least from what I was watching today. I haven't gotten to the second half yet. I got to the first half on Giants defense. I didn't get to the second half yet. I finished the entire offensive tape, but that's at least what I saw in the first half.
Well, Rico Dowdle, I thought, had a few good runs. I didn't necessarily notice if every single one of his runs came, to your point, with Dex not on the field. But I know, listening to Mike McCarthy speak after the game, he mentioned that coming into this contest, even Jerry Jones talked about it, and they respect the hell out of this Giants defensive line. They know if they're going up against the Giants, you don't want to go in thinking you're going to run the ball 40-some-odd times, regardless of even when you're up. You want to be able to throw and try to attack a secondary that has some youth and so forth. Now, in fairness, they didn't lose those corners until the second half of the game.
Yeah, that's correct.
For the first half,
you're right about that.
You still had Deonte Banks on the field. Mm-hmm. You still had Cordell Flott, who ultimately had the interception. And it's interesting, John, about Trey Hawkins, and was having conversations off the air about this. You go back to the preseason, we were talking about him left and right. I mean, there were people saying that, he may supplant a veteran on this team, right?
He played himself off the field.
But things have dramatically changed over the course of the regular
Which
season.
is, by the way, you don't take a ton out of preseason
Exactly.
football.
Or training camp, too.
Right.
There's only so much stock you put into it because, A, it's a small sample size, and B, we haven't played meaningful games yet.
And again, he played well. He earned his way
He
into
did.
the lineup.
I'm not saying that it was
Absolutely.
overblown, but
that's why until you see them in real games again, real competition, you don't know for sure.
Because the reason I bring that up is we were talking a lot about depth this offseason, right? And even the coaches were talking about it. You bring in A'Shawn Robinson and Nacho to spell Dexter Lawrence, and then Leonard Williams gets traded. Well, now you got to play those guys more, okay? So it changes the dynamics, and with respect to the secondary, you got some young guys from last year making strides. You have the rookies who look good, but you haven't seen them go up against Michael Gallup and C.D. Lamb and Brandon Cooks and what the Eagles receiving core has to offer because they haven't played them yet. And that's when the true litmus test comes into play. And I think as the season has progressed, you're seeing that these guys are still young, they're still unproven, and they got a long way still to go to catch up with a Cowboys team that has utterly dominated them pretty much as of late, no matter what year you want to pick, since Dak's rookie year. He has not lost when he's been the starting quarterback. Their one win was when Andy Dalton was under center. That was the 2020 regular season finale, and even that game went down to the wire as Andy threw, I think, a pick to McKinney, I want to say, in the end zone on the latter part of that contest.
All right, I'll wrap with this before we get to your calls here. I know we have a full bank, and we'll get to your calls the rest of the way. There's a lot of kind of like non-football, off-the-field stuff that came up over the course of the game. My 2 cents, and you heard me on the post-game show last night, so I'll just read it what I said then. One, if you think it's a big deal that the head coach is talking to the defensive coordinator a lot when your defense gives up 28 points and a half, I don't know how to help you. Don't you want the head coach interested in what's happening on the defensive end of the ball? Do you want Brian Dable completely siloed and just worrying about the offense? It's not like he was reaming Wink Martindale and like throwing stuff at him. And yeah, if I'm the head coach and my defense just gave up 28 points and a half, I'm going to have a chat with my defensive coordinator. Maybe I can help him. Maybe I have some ideas to figure out how to fix things. I don't understand how that's even a modicum of a big deal. I don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe you can call and convince me. I don't get why that's a thing at all. The Slayton Shepard thing, the guys addressed it after the game. Slayton said he got frustrated. He got a little emotional because of the losing. Again, not because of him not getting the football or anything like that, because they weren't having success as a team.
Which is understandable.
Which, by the way, I don't have a problem with either. Right? Do you not want to show it? Sure. But I get it. I'd rather have the guys care than not care. You know what I mean? That's something Bobby Okereke said after the game. And, then Shepard was trying to encourage him. Slayton was obviously in a bad mood. So he's kind of like, I don't want to listen to you right now. But Shepard's trying to encourage him, and he follows him down the sideline. That's number 2. And again, never assume you know what's being said on the sideline. You're not down there. Things can look very different than what the reality actually is.
Well, I'll give you the perfect example, actually, because this came to my mind. There was a few years ago, there was a Lions-Cowboys game. It was, I believe, in Detroit. Des Bryant got very animated on the sideline. Jason Witten walks over to him, and it looks like they're having a heated argument. But Jason was just coming over to encouraging him. And the audio was released a few weeks later, and it told a completely different story than what the optics and the imagery showcase. So it's another example. We could sit here all day and overanalyze, but if you don't know the proper context, I think you're making a very dangerous assumption. I also think this is the perfect product of teams not playing well, and people just don't want to
looking for things to
Well, they don't want to just accept the fact that Dallas out-executed the Giants in every facet of football imaginable.
And right now, Dallas is just a better team.
Yeah, and that's too boring, John, to digest.
Correct.
So instead of just saying, okay, they outclassed them on the field, we have to look for, okay, what is other rationale as to why the game was so lopsided? Oh, you've got 2 wide receivers that seem to have friction, and you have the head coach talking to the defensive coordinator, and they're having a very lengthy powwow, and this is not something we typically see. So there's bad blood brewing, and then you have guys that don't speak to the media after the game, and everything is breaking apart when they're human. They're not robots. If you put me in a position and I was on a team and I was trailing 28-0, what do you think I'm doing? Smiling and it's rainbows and lollipops?
Lance, we played on the same rec league basketball team. When things go wrong,
you get frustrated.
People get mad at each other. It happens.
And I'm not trying to put myself in the shoes of a professional athlete. It's normal human nature. If you're a competitor and you're being beat up and it's a lopsided game, show me an individual that's having fun taking part in that.
No one's having fun.
So
no one's having fun.
Why should professional athletes be any different?
And
I don't see why it's an issue.
And the whole media after the game thing, I don't know what happened with McKinney. I'm not in the locker room. Lance is in the locker room, so we don't have firsthand knowledge of this. But there was a big thing made about Dexter Lawrence deciding not to talk.
And he addressed it earlier with the media.
And I'm going to get to that right now. and basically said, look, and by the way, this is true. I've been in that locker room after every game since, 2012. Dexter Lawrence talks after every single game. Every game you can go up to him, he'll talk, win, loss, or draw. Apparently, and again, I'm not in the locker room, I'm just going by what, and the media seem to confirm this is what happened, so I don't think this is a controversy, that Dexter Lawrence said, guys, look, it's my birthday. I have family here today. We don't have a lot of time after the game to spend time with family before you get on the bus and you get out of there, and the team did get out of there quickly yesterday, is my understanding, and he didn't want to talk, and he wanted to talk to his family. Now, ideally, do your leaders talk after a game like this? Sure. Is that the preference? Sure. I would like to think for a guy that never really says no when you ask him to do something, that the one time he asks for a little bit of grace, you get a little bit of grace. That's all I'm saying. But again, I get it. You want the leaders to talk after a loss like this. Totally understand that. Not arguing with that. But given how Dexter has treated the media over the years, seems to me that one-time deal, if this becomes a trend and it's 3 or 4 games in a row, whatever, fine. But a one-time deal, I think it's making to your point, no one wants to talk about a game that was 32 points and Dallas has 640 yards of offense, most since 1966, whatever it was, 1960 Eagles game. People are looking for other stuff to talk about. So I think that's kind of where we're at.
And this is not an excuse for the players, but the other thing that I also find interesting, and I'm going to make a generic statement about press conferences in general, more often than not, you really don't get a lot. Regardless of whether or not the player or the coach is going to answer the questions, they're not at the point where they've broken down the film and can really provide ultra insight into what may have gone wrong. I feel you get a better takeaway the day after, once the coaches and the players have had an opportunity to review things.
So you get more of an emotional reaction after the game than anything X's and O's
but
wise. Yeah.
The bottom line is, they were outplayed. The score reflected that. The optics reflected that. No matter how you want to spin it, I guess what I'm getting at is I don't think there's anything a player or a coach could say that is going to change what would have transpired on the field. I think everyone knew why the result took place. Whether Dexter Lawrence addressed it, whether a secondary member addressed it, whether Tommy DeVito addressed it. I think if you watched the game and you saw what happened, I think, once again, it's pretty much stating the obvious at this point.
Join us on Sunday, November 19th at Hair of the Dog in Manhattan to watch the Giants take on Washington. Enjoy Modelo drink specials, meet a Giants legend, and enter a raffle to win game tickets and more. Visit Giants.com/Bar Network to learn more. Don't forget to subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. Our rapid reaction with Madeline and Sean O'Hara is up there right now. Other stuff coming later in the week. Find it on Giants.com/podcast, the Giants app, or search for Giants Huddle on your favorite podcast platforms. All right, let's get to it, folks. I'm going to try to get to as many of you today as possible at 201-939-4513. Let's lead it off with Donnie in Queens. Hello, Donnie.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. Lance, I spoke to you guys, you and Paul last Monday, and I was kind of with you guys at the time. I said, I really wasn't into the looking ahead and talking about the draft and those types of things, that there was still, games left to play.
I'm waiting for a butt, Donnie.
Yeah, there's still 7 games, so.
Sure, but my butt is going to be that if it happens, unless Tyrod Taylor comes back, there's not going to be anything to analyze. And this isn't a knock on Tommy, but the players are not stupid, and there's two ways to play hard. There's playing hard, and then there's playing hard with belief. And I think it was just pretty evident to me that the Giants did not believe that they had a chance to win that game yesterday.
Well, Donnie, I will say this. Look, and I can't tell you whether or not you're right about that or not, but the opponents are not the Dallas Cowboys the next 4 games the Giants play.
Sure. It will get easier. But it's just, the whole thing is just blah. Like, it's just, there's no fire. And look, that's what happens when these seasons happen. And unfortunately, we've seen far too much of it. And, unfortunately, I hate to admit this, I took the Cowboys in my survivor pool yesterday. I'm probably going to take Washington next week. And I say this not to disrupt your program. I really appreciate the work you guys do. This is more just for ownership to hear. But the vast majority of the fan base is rooting for the team to just lose at this point. And that's kind of where it's at here.
See, now, Donnie, you say that, and I do think there's a group of fans that think that way. But trust me, when you're in that building and there's 70,000 fans there, about three quarters of them are still rooting for the team to win the game. I'm just
Yeah,
telling you
those fear-
that's how more fans than you think go about their business. There is a group like you that are probably their harder core fans that are more thinking that way. But the people that sit there and have a 5-hour tailgate and freeze their butts off outside and spend a lot of their hard-earned money to go to the game, they want to see the Giants play well. They're not going to the game to see the Giants lose. They're not. I promise you that.
Well, John, you're talking about 3/4 of maybe 40,000 people that are going to be at these games moving forward. So it is a smaller sample size. A lot of the fans are going to turn their back, and I'm not going to go to another game this year. I have tickets. I've given them away. And look, I think the alcohol maybe lets people forget track of.
Well, but I mean, Donnie, I think the larger point is, regardless of how individual fans feel, as I've said multiple times on this program, the players are not consumed by the draft or what's going to happen with this team next year.
And ownership wants them to win games as well.
Yeah, but I mean, but the players are the ones that are controlling it, and
the
a lot of the guys are not going to be on the roster next year. That's just the nature of the NFL and the turnover rate.
Absolutely.
So you can't say to yourself, oh, well, it serves the team's interest if we lose a game when that player may not even be around to benefit from wherever they select.
Absolutely. And that's why I've seen debates, well, why would they put Tyrod back in? Well, because they have to. Like, they have to. It's not fair to Dexter Lawrence to say, go get double teams for 60 minutes, and we're not going to give you the best chance to play.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yep.
Sure.
I have no idea what the health status of he is moving forward.
Well, he hasn't been ruled out for the season. I mean, we don't know, and he is eligible to come back after the bye, as I mentioned last week. So, to me, as it stands right now, until Brian Dable or somebody else officially rules him out for the remainder of the season, the door is still opened, assuming he's healthy once he's eligible to return following the bye.
And with the bye week in there, Donnie, that's almost like, if you look at the calendar, 6 calendar weeks that will have gone by since the injury. So,
So look, they until he gets back, I don't think you'll. I mean, like, at least offensively, you're not going to see much competitive football. I mean, it's just very hard to fathom. And look, you guys know what happens too in these situations. Guys start dropping like flies. You're going to push through a certain injury if you're a pending free agent. Maybe not. So, look, yesterday sucked. The season has sucked. The last decade has generally sucked. I'm kind of at a loss here. I'm almost just calling to just vent to you guys, and
we get
almost appreciate you being here for that. And let's just hope for better days. And that's really all I got for you guys. Have a good week, and if I don't talk to you, enjoy your holiday with your family.
All right, you
Donnie,
too.
appreciate it. Don't be a stranger, Donnie. You don't have to stop calling. We can talk about other things. But look, guys, I understand why everything looks so bleak as it does right now. It's 49-17. You got outgained by almost, they almost had 3 times as many yards on offense as the Giants did. I get it. But look, Washington's defense is not good. Like, it's not good. There's no reason this offense should not be able to function at a decent level next week. Opponents do matter, okay? Opponents do matter. Now, it was very disappointing. They could not function better against the Raiders 2 weeks ago.
I was just going to get to that.
Because they should have been able to function better against the Raiders too, and they didn't. So, let's see how this goes in a week against Washington, and then I think we'll have a better feel for where this team is headed. Because like I said, Lance, we've seen Dallas do this to teams. If Washington now, and again, the Raider game's a bad sign, but if we see this Washington team now run out to a big lead and win in a blowout, which is something Washington generally doesn't do, they play very close games.
Though Sam Howell played a really good game yesterday, so we'll see.
Oh, no, look, Sam Howell's, and the only reason the Giants beat him the last time is because Dexter Lawrence just took over the game.
He had no time.
Dominated.
Protection was terrible.
Absolutely dominated Dexter Lawrence. So let's see how the game next week does, and then I think we'll have a better idea of kind of where this thing is heading.
Yeah, and then after that, they have a New England team.
They can't score either.
Mac Jones, they're having their own issues. Is it Bailey Zappi? Is it Mac? I mean, who knows what that team is going to look like. But, then again, and I think I've said this over the last few years,
You have
John,
to be able to take advantage of it.
You got to be able to take advantage, and that hasn't happened. So I get tired of having the dialogue, oh, this looks like an attractive game, so therefore the Giants should dominate. And I'm not saying you were going there, but we've had similar conversations where fans also think, oh, this is the part of the schedule where it opened up. Because in fairness, right, after Miami and Buffalo, what was the narrative? Oh, they have Washington, they have the Jets, they have the Raiders.
Well, and they beat Washington, and they should have beaten the Jets if it wasn't for the last 30 seconds of the game.
Yeah, but they ultimately ended up losing two of those three, and that's why you can't take anything for granted. I don't think the Giants are in position to do that, especially based on how they've been playing on both sides.
And obviously that wasn't the point I was making.
No, of course not.
Course.
But I'm just getting back to we've heard these conversations prior. That's all I'm saying. But yes,
Washington not as good as Dallas.
No,
that's basically
the next two opponents are not the Cowboys.
Yes,
they're not the Cowboys with respect to the defensive line. They're not the Cowboys with respect to the offensive line. They're not the Cowboys with respect to the skill position
by the way,
players and the quarterback too.
Same with the Saints and the Packers after the bye too. Like those are not they're not the Eagles. They're not Dallas. They're not San Francisco. Yeah. They're not even Seattle, right? They're not even at that level, or Buffalo or Miami. You know what I mean? So you would hope if the Giants, and again, none of this matters. The opponent doesn't matter unless the Giants play better. They have to play better. And then it's obviously easier to play better against opponents that aren't as good, and then you'll kind of, see where you're at. Let's go to Jamal in Dallas. I know Jamal isn't having a rough day today, probably with all the Cowboy fans down there. Jamal, what's up?
Oh, my gosh, fellas. Thank you for taking my call. How y'all doing?
Yo.
All right.
All right. So I was at the game yesterday. I go every year. It's a family tradition. All my family from up north, they all live down south now, but my aunts and uncles raised them as Cowboy fans, and my dad raised me as a Giant. So I always tell them I was raised the right way. But anyway, with that being said, man, the debacle, it was ugly. Like, I had to leave at halftime. I was trying to make my way to y'all, trying to find y'all on the other side. I was in the 300 section on the Cowboy side. But anyway, I was like, I got to talk to Big Blue Kickoff. I got to call them tomorrow because this is, oh, my gosh. But anyway, so I recorded some of the plays, and I think y'all discussed in the beginning of your intro of the conversation. And on that, I guess on that fourth and goal series.
Yeah.
I think you were talking about those crossing routes that we ran.
That was on the third down previous to the Barkley 4th and 2 run.
That was the one where DeVito ran for 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So those routes, I mean, I guess there were supposed to be some type of pick plays that didn't develop. I mean, nobody was open. I mean, nobody was open.
Yeah, but Jamal, the thing is that there wasn't even time for the guys to get open. By the time, I think that was J-Ron. I think J-Ron Kearse was the free runner on that play, if I remember properly. And the minute DeVito got his foot down, guys weren't even out of their breaks yet and finding space, and he was already running for his life.
Right. But there was another play on that series. Maybe it was second down, and we threw it toward the end zone. I don't know what receiver that was.
No, I think you're talking about the Cager throw on first down. Is that what you're referring to?
The one down the right sideline.
The second down was Barkley in the Wildcat.
There was the throw down the right sideline that Jordan Lewis should have picked it off to Cager. That play you're talking about?
No, it was an overthrow. We were right there on the 7 or the 8. It was an overthrow, but Bellinger came open. Like, Bellinger was open on the hash. Like, he had beat that linebacker.
I think this is a different drive.
I'm thinking maybe it's the drive in the third quarter, maybe?
Yeah.
No, it has to be in the beginning of the game because there was the only time we were that. No, this is the beginning of the game because we were going towards that particular end zone. Hold on, I'm going to find it. But anyway, Bellinger comes over. I think DeVito took 2-3 steps and just threw it to the right side of the field. Let me see. But anyway, Bellinger comes open on a release on the inside. So I'm like, man, if he just waits a little bit, maybe he had 2 steps on the linebacker. Anyway, the Wildcat move, that Wildcat play, oh, my gosh. Is that McKinnon, number 60?
McKeithen gets turned around, and
turning around?
Dude, it almost looks like he's playing defense like a basketball player on Saquon Barkley on the play. Dude, I saw that today on the tape, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, dude. If he would have just turned around and blocked somebody in front of him, they would have gained like 5 or 6 yards on the play.
We might score. He might be able to score. Maybe not, but D-Law is right there. He's not making the tackle. He's not making the play, right? Just block look at those safeties and DBs right there. Just block them. We have nobody there. Just you ran into Saquon. And that was many plays like that. What is it? Smith, our center is getting pushed back into Saquon every play. It's like
John Michael Schmitz had a little bit of a rough game against Hankins and Neville Gallimore.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, and then, oh, my gosh. And then that play. I know y'all talked about it, but that play to Barkley. So I guess it was a read option or
yeah, that's
RPO.
what it looked like, huh?
Yeah.
But come on, guys. Come on, Kafka. Come on, Devil. we got to be more creative down there. Like, why are we not getting Wan'Dale Robinson on a flare route? Why are we not getting him the ball in space? Saquon the ball in space. Why are we running him through the middle? Like, I think the middle is our weakest part of our offense. Would you not agree?
Well, especially based on the matchup with what the Cowboys present on the interior.
Well, on the defensive line, yes, but the Cowboys are also a team that basically play 210-pound safeties at linebacker. So you think you can maybe get downhill on them, because the last thing you want to do is let those guys run sideline to sideline, because the Cowboys rely on speed on defense, right? Yeah. So I think the thought would be you want to try to get downhill on some of those smaller second-level players, and maybe you could break some runs. Unfortunately,
you got to get through the first layer.
You have to get to the first level first, and they were unable to do that. 100% correct. No argument. That's 100% fair.
Like, you can't get to the second level if you can't get no push on the first level. So I'd rather put my running back on a linebacker. I don't care how fast they are. I still think my running back is probably a better athlete than them. I mean, except Michael Parsons, he's a freak of.
Well, Cowboys have some pretty good athletes, though, in fairness, at the linebacker position. Even some of these guys that are filling in for Leighton Vander Esch and so forth. And their safeties. I mean, John referenced J-Ron Curse, Donovan Wilson.
Marquise Bell.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, they're athletes. And Dan Quinn taps into them.
But Saquon is our best athlete on the offense right now. So my thing is just the creativity. We got to get our guys in space. I get it, matchups. I'm in the game, and I'm like, guys, we got to find matchups. You're going to tell me Wan'Dale Robinson can't get open on these guys? And I get it. It's about timing. My last point is just I feel like we're at a breaking point. I'm sorry. I know y'all guys are going to wait into the Washington game to see, but our leaders aren't willing to talk. They're done. I guess there's rumors Saquon had a moment with our coach. McKinney's making comments. Darius Slayton is having a meltdown on the sideline. Guys,
that wasn't
really a meltdown.
I'm not sure that's a meltdown.
I mean,
it ain't Odell Beckham meltdown.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean, Jamal, have you grown up playing sports? You play sports when you were a kid?
I played college ball, man.
Okay, so did you get annoyed when you lost a lopsided game?
Oh, trust me.
Okay,
exactly.
So my point is, you should be able to relate then when things don't go right. Human beings get frustrated, don't they?
Oh yeah. But
okay. So what's the difference?
But what I'm saying is, but these are guys. A lot of the guys, but the guys that are normally not like that are starting to show some character traits that are not usually like them. Right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, think about it. Darius has been here since 2019. Okay, so last season was the outlier for him. Every other season, has he tasted the playoffs?
Same for Saquon,
has he tasted winning football?
Same for Saquon.
Well, yeah, and I'm not. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing it's a bad. I'm just saying I'm getting concerned on they're getting tired of losing, the way we're losing, the fashion we're losing. I'm just saying, as you see leaders starting to act this way, that's out of their character, whether it's the right way to act or not. That's not their personality naturally.
No, I hear you, Jamal. I hear what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? So to me, I'm a little concerned, like, hey, what's going on in that locker room? McKinney's making comments last week. Andrew Thomas is trying to buffer it up. It's just a lot. It seems like it's going on. And when you're losing like this, everybody's going to put a spot on you, stuff like that. My last point is this. Owner, Steve Tisch, John Mara, come on. You can't handicap our coaches with quarterbacks. Nothing against DJ. I had nothing but faith in him. I know he's injured. I hope he comes back healthy. But you got to let the general manager and your coach select their quarterback.
No, Jamal, I'm going to tell you right now. If they go to the owner and they tell him they want to draft a player, ownership's not going to tell them no. They're not.
So
they are not going to tell them no.
And I'm going to take this off the air.
Yes, sir.
But something I want y'all to think about.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a team that has been successful when they inherited a previous quarterback. And when I mean successful, I'm talking about not Super Bowl, but playoff wins. Tell me, I just want to know, what is the record and what is the statistics or the type of teams that have been able to sustain by not picking their own quarterback with success? Right now, I can only think of maybe two: Tom Brady with the Tampa Bay, and then McCarthy and Dak.
I would say Aaron Rodgers with LaFleur in Green Bay. I mean, but what are we talking? Very successful years down there.
But I mean, are we talking about a new GM or a new head coach, or are we talking about the combination of both? Because here you had a new head coach and a new GM. Yeah. There are certain situations where the general manager who drafted the quarterback is still around,
right,
and then the head coaches change. So it's different situations, different environments. I mean, I'm thinking through.
I mean, Jalen Hurts was there before Sirianni was there.
Correct.
Correct?
Yeah.
That regime didn't
Yeah,
draft
Sirianni
Hurts.
inherited Jalen Hurts. Correct, because Hurts was there when Doug Peterson was the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So there you had a new coach come in, and Howie Roseman and them had drafted him. And look at Sirianni now flourishing with Jalen Hurts.
The Bucks chose Brady, didn't they? They traded for him.
Yeah, well,
No,
that's why I didn't
true,
understand
too.
what he
Yeah,
was talking
that's
about. Yeah,
true.
that was not a good
It isn't
example.
like Brady was there
Yeah.
and they changed head coaches after Brady
Yeah,
got
well,
there.
and also Todd Bowles was there. He was the defensive coordinator
Right.
when he took over. So I wouldn't necessarily use that. But
Was
what about Tua Tagovailoa?
Tua, right? Tua
Yeah,
was in
Tua-
Miami when McDaniels got there.
Correct. Tua was already there because Tua's had about 500 different offensive coordinators.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He was there with Flores initially.
good one.
So Mike McDaniel comes in, inherits Tua, and look at what's happening with the Dolphins offense. So I think that would be a good example. Granted, it's a small sample size, but I think it's a stretch to say individuals are being forced on other people.
And guys, trust me, if Joe Shane wants to draft a player, unless there's some type of criminal history or something that reflects poorly on the organization where the ownership might step in and say, we don't want that player, as part of this organization and representing the team, I could see the ownership stepping in a situation like that. In a very, very severe circumstance, not in the kid smoked weed or something like that. You know what I mean? Maybe, but otherwise, the ownership group lets these guys draft who they want. They don't dictate what players they draft. It's not the way things work here. Just isn't. Go ahead.
Justin Herbert with the Chargers. Brandon Staley took over. He was already drafted. So he was there.
He was already there when Staley got there?
Yep. He was
Okay.
He was there with Anthony Lynn. So
Anthony Lynn. That's right.
Anthony Lynn
That's
was
right.
the head coach. So that's another example that I'll give you.
What
And
about
then
the Vikings?
the Vikings, Kirk Cousins was inherited by
Yeah,
Kevin
that's a good
O'Connell.
one. And
Yeah,
they've
Kirk is there.
actually had a lot
Correct.
of success with Cousins. Yeah.
And-
Sorry, Jamal. Your theory is not the best.
Yeah, I'm going around the league. Oh, here's another one.
Fair question, though. By the way, I like this. I actually think this is a pretty good exercise.
Trevor Lawrence was there. Doug Peterson comes in, and look at what he's done with Trevor. So
I think everyone's tried to forget the Urban Meyer experiment.
Yeah, no, but
Yes.
I'll keep going around and around.
No, that's
and I'll
great.
give you another one. I know it's not a perfect example, but Kevin Stefanski inherited Baker Mayfield, and Baker had his best season with Stefanski. They made the playoffs that first year. Then things didn't go according to plan. Baker got hurt, but he inherited him that first year. They made it to playoffs. Remember, they beat up Pittsburgh in the postseason. Kevin was dealing with COVID. He couldn't even coach the team. So there are plenty examples of coaches coming in and keeping the current quarterback.
Yeah, there is. And by the way, I did find the play he was talking about. It was the throw to Cager, and Bellinger opens up late, but he opens up after the ball's in the air. And the Cowboys safety guarding Bellinger's looking back. He sees the ball in the air and he slows down. So I'm not going to buy that one.
And by the way, I'm maybe confusing a play. Was
Yeah.
it Jordan Lewis or was it Wanye Thomas that almost had the interception?
I thought it was Jordan Lewis.
It was
No?
Jordan Lewis.
No,
Okay.
I'll look
maybe
again.
I'm mistaken.
Let me
I
see.
thought Wanye was in one of the plays, but I may be confusing it with another one. That's why I was just curious if you had the play up.
No,
But
I will
maybe
look at it
that
real
one
quick.
was
Let's
Jordan
see.
Lewis. I remember vividly Wanye Thomas, who's another guy, by the way, like Marquise Bell, who's been filling in for some of these injured guys. He was actually the one that blocked the
Let's
field
see
goal
what number it is. You
in
could be
week
right.
1.
That is number 30. No, you're right. Number 30.
It was
You're correct,
Wanye
Lance.
Thomas.
It was Wanye
Okay,
Thomas.
yeah, I remember
Absolutely
Wanye
correct.
making
My
a play
fault.
on the ball. No, all good. That's why I didn't know
No,
whether
thank
it
you
was
for
that
that.
play or was it a different play.
No, that was the exact play I was thinking about. That was Wanye
Yeah,
Thomas.
it was
I don't-
literally right off his fingertips. I'm showing for the audience. I can see us on camera. I mean, it went off both index fingers.
Yeah, I don't know
on the
why.
top.
I mean, the
Yeah.
numbers aren't even close. I have no idea
that's
why I
fine.
thought that was Jordan Lewis. 201-939-4513. Let's go back to the phones. Brandon's in New Jersey. Brandon, what's up?
How's it going, fellas?
Could be better, Brandon. What's up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We hear you
loud and clear, man.
Yep.
What do you got?
All right. First off, I want to know how I could nominate you guys for sainthood, because the fact that y'all spend 30 minutes professionally breaking down that dumpster fire of a game is amazing to me, and you guys need some type of medal or something. Y'all do a great job over there, all right?
It was more
Okay,
like
cool.
22 minutes, but I appreciate it. That's the thing. I appreciate
For
that.
those of
Thank
you
you.
counting at home, yeah. Well, I mean, we don't need participation trophies. It is what it is. And, listen, I said this last week. I'm not speaking for John. I look forward to the season, regardless of the results. So
course.
I'm going to spend time breaking down a game, whether it was competitive or not, because we spend the entire offseason analyzing prospects and going through the draft. So I understand it's rough, but the way I look at it is
We have 4 months.
there's going to be
January, February, March,
Yeah.
April, guys. 4 months.
I mean, there's only so much analysis you could put into draft picks. It becomes paralysis by analysis. So I understand it's not the most exciting contest, but it's at least something different from our perspective. I'm telling you how I'm approaching it, at least through my lens.
And look, maybe we'll start looking at it more as in terms of, how individual players are progressing throughout the year with some of these games, but the tape's always valuable. You only get 17 game tapes a year to evaluate a team and evaluate players. And to the front office, every second of that is valuable to see what you have on this roster. Yeah. Anyway, Brandon, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. I have an off-season question, but I'm going to just get it out now. It's really more just like a question of if it could happen, the likelihood or whatnot doesn't really matter to me.
Sure.
But so before, John, me and you talked about Jalen Hurts' contract before and how it was listed as like a 5-year contract, but it really is more like 10-year contract. I was trying to figure out, like, although they've signed Jones to, I think it's 4 years and 160, and then only 82 of it was guaranteed. I was trying to figure out, could they extend him to make all those cap numbers lower? And whatever the Giants Twitter is saying, let's say they get it their way, you just leave him as the backup? I've always said I thought Jones was the best backup in the league.
No, look, Brandon, you could do that, but you could not put enough extra years on that contract to spread that money out. The quarterback would have to agree to that, and you would still have fairly large cap numbers for a backup quarterback. So no, I don't think that's something that's feasible.
Yeah, I mean, you're still kicking the can down the road, as they say.
I mean, even if you double the length of the contract, you're still looking at an average of $20 million a year on the cap hit. I mean, for a backup, no. I mean, it's not going to happen.
Because I'd like to keep Jones. I still think I've always said this. I've called here. I've always thought he was the best backup quarterback in the league. At the time, he was a starter, so nobody wanted to hear that. But he has great, like, all his physicals is good. When he has time to throw, I mean, he's fairly accurate. So they're behind people sometimes, but whatever, fairly accurate. Like, he has everything you kind of would want in a quarterback, especially a backup. You already have him on the contract instead of just, like, getting rid of drones and for nothing, basically, and spending all this money, dead cap, more bad contracts, like all the stuff that's plagued the Giants for, I don't know, a decade. Instead of continuing to do that, maybe find some creative ways to basically fill up a position you have to have backup quarterback. But at the same time, not.
Well, Brendan, let me jump in here and ask you this, because, I mean, I think the exercise of us finding other examples when the previous caller was talking about inheriting a quarterback, can you remember a time where a starting quarterback redid his deal and then settled to be the backup after he was given a lucrative contract?
Yeah, that would be a first.
I mean, that would be – you're asking for uncharted territory. That's what you're asking
and
for.
I don't think those – and Brandon, I appreciate your creativity. It's just something that's not going to happen. Do you have any other points you want to make?
No, that was it. It was just a question like that.
Brandon, fair question. It's all good, man. I appreciate all creative questions, and I appreciate the creativity. Great stuff.
God,
Thank
you sounded defeated.
I know. I felt. I didn't
mean to suck the living life out of him. I hope you're happy with yourself.
I didn't mean to crush his hopes and dreams.
The guy's breaking down on the phone here. He waited on hold to speak to us, and that's what you did. You literally ripped his heart.
I thought I was nice and polite about it.
The man was highly emotional after that. Jeez Louise. My goodness.
And now he's going to call up and yell at Pearson on the phone, and then we're going to have issues on the sideline here. And people are going to say Big Blue Kickoff's falling apart on us. I'm just kidding, obviously.
No. In all seriousness, though, with respect to the question, I think that's more realistic, what the last caller was saying, when the player is still on a rookie contract.
Yeah, for
where
sure.
you can have a guy that started, right, and then you bring him back. Zach Wilson was going to be the example that I got to, and he started, he was benched, he started, because from a financial standpoint, it's manageable. Right. When you get into the territory of giving a quarterback starting caliber, top 10, 15 money, it completely changes, I think, the realistic opportunity to change the depth chart, bring in another guy, and have everybody happy and not put stress on the salary cap. So that's why the Zach Wilson situation is very different than what the caller was laying out potentially with Daniel Jones.
And again, the quarterback would have to agree to it, and that's extending out at veteran minimums over the course of 4 years. You think anybody would do that in their right mind? No, they wouldn't. So, again, Brandon, appreciate the creativity. You're a great caller. We love you. You're the best. Thank you. Call back. But I just don't think that idea is going to work. Let's go to DJ in Virginia. He's up next. Hey, DJ.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's up?
Doing all right. What's on your mind?
So I'm just curious. I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on with the team as far as, like, why does it seem like they're not very competitive? You know, like, is it a roster thing? Is it a coaching thing? Like,
Look,
'cause it seems like even over the
Go ahead, DJ. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, because it seems like even over the years, different regimes, different coaches, different GMs, but the results are still the same.
Well, which probably tells you it's not a coaching problem, right? I think that would be the first hint that you have, that you keep changing coaches and the results keep being the same. Probably tells you it's not a coaching thing. Look, the NFL is a player-based business. Coaches make differences. Coaches matter. Coaches are important. But you could have the best coach in the world. I'm going to go reference Bill Belichick up there in New England. If you don't have the horses to play for you, you're not going to have success. Even a coach like Mike Tomlin, we've seen, he was a Super Bowl contender for a lot of years. When the roster got worse, is to his credit, he's still getting his team to hover around 500. But are they competing for Super Bowls? No, because the roster's not as good, even though he is still an excellent head coach, right? So it's about, right now, the roster still not being where it is. And I've said this before, Lance. I haven't done a show with you in a few weeks, but when this group got here, when I'm talking group, I mean Joe Shane and company, right? And they rebuilt the front office, new coaches, all that stuff. We said this is a 2 to 3 year process to get the roster back to where you need it to be, right? This is really just year 2. He's had 2 draft classes. He's had 2 free agent periods, one of which was tearing the team down and not adding anybody. So he's really had 1 free agency period where he can actually add to the roster to try to make it better. He's had a ridiculous amount of injuries to the team's best players this year. We talked last year, they won a ton of close games, and while they had some injuries, Daniel Jones played every game, Saquon Barkley played every game, Andrew Thomas played every game, Dexter Lawrence played every game. Those are your 4 most important players to your roster, right? Probably.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This year, Andrew Thomas has missed almost every game except for 2. Daniel Jones has missed more than half the game. Saquon Barkley missed 3 games. And Dexter Lawrence has luckily been on the field. But you had to a point against Buffalo, Lance, where of your 9 offensive linemen on your roster to start the year, you had 3 left healthy, standing. It's tough to fight through that. Now, that's not saying that's an excuse. These margins, these margin of defeats are unacceptable. And trust me, no one's happy about that here. Everyone knows. And my larger point here is that when you have, DJ, losses like this and a 2-8 start, there is not one thing to point to where you say that one thing is the problem. Brian Daboll said on his press conference today, it's a team-wide problem, and the problem starts with him. And it begins with the coaching, but has a ton to do with execution as well. This is a organizational-wide failure. That's how you get to 2-8 with what's by far right now the worst point differential in the NFL.
Yeah, I understand. I understand the injuries. Injuries happen in football. It's a part of the game. But to not be competitive, even the Bears, who had the first pick in the draft last year, they're competitive with Tyson Bagent. You know what I mean? It's he won 2 games. I don't understand. And before, when we talk about the GMs, it's we used to blame Reese for bad drafts. He drafted Flowers, he drafted Eli Apple, he drafted, Evan Ingram. So, we gave Dave Gettleman a little bit of a pass. Now, here we go with Shane, and we're kind of doing the same thing. Shane, it's not really his fault. Dave Gettleman, years of bad drafting. It's when is the team going to get better?
Well, to your point about the Bears, and I think Chicago's a good example with Tyson Bagent, who was a D2 player and a heck of a story. But, remember, they beat the Raiders and the Panthers. Those are their 2 wins. So you got to look at the caliber of the competition that they managed to win those games. You put the Bears against the Dallas Cowboys, you put the Bears against the Eagles. I don't know necessarily if we're going to be talking about Tyson Bagent and company going 2-2 in the span of 4.
Right, again, if we show them next week and we see the Giants lose 49-17 to Washington, to me, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, and this is taking into consideration the loss to the Raiders. That was not good. But if you talk about Washington and New England, the next 2 games, and you're losing by 2-3 touchdowns, that to me is more alarming than perhaps what transpired yesterday. Not an excuse.
Nope,
it's
not
just
an excuse.
Dallas and the Giants are on different wavelengths, okay? And that has been like that for several seasons. And to answer your question, that has to do with talent on the roster, okay? And specifically execution in the trenches. That is what is separating both of those teams. That's an easy answer. But with respect to the Giants versus these other teams...
And I would say quarterback play as well.
Oh, quarterback, 100%. In terms of Dak and his stability. Yeah. More veteran period of time that's been together with the rest of the roster. There's no doubt about that. But Washington and New England, I think, is going to be a good litmus test for this team to either go in the direction that you're talking about or perhaps further emphasize that the caliber of the competition is really right now making all the difference to determine the competitive nature of this Giants team. And appreciate the phone call.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
Absolutely.
201-939-4513. Wilson's in Roxbury. Hi, Wilson.
Hey, guys. Hey, listen, I wasn't going to call, but when I saw you guys together, I figured I'd call. After today, I'm going to take a little break of calling, so I just want to wish you
What
guys,
happened? There's not enough conspiracy theories out there to reflect on?
No, because I
See, now, Wilson, I'm going to be honest, Wilson, I'm nervous now. I feel like if you're not going to call in a while, you're going to try to go out with a bang here. So I am now holding my breath to see what you're trying to do here on your call.
No, Wilson's preparing for a night at the Roxbury. That's what he's preparing for. Yeah, they're remaking the film.
No, listen. Listen. First thing is, I get you guys' predicament because you guys are in the building.
Yes.
And sometimes, I guess you can't be as transparent as I want you guys to be. And I get it. And sometimes it frustrates me, and it is what it is. But like John, listen, I love you, but you can read that paper you have in front of you, and to me it means nothing. Because yesterday it was like a preseason game for the Cowboys. We all know that. And the Giants, I mean,
Wilson, no argument. The Cowboys dominated the game from start to finish. There's no argument. I'm with you on that.
And you know how I feel about Brian Dable, and we got 7 more games to go. And to me, the team has checked out on him, has checked out on the season. They're embarrassing themselves on the sidelines now. He's making a mockery of the post-game press conference. He's making a mockery out of that.
Wilson, seriously, would you rather have him give the 8-minute diatribes that Joe Judge gave before he got fired?
This is what I'm getting at. And if I can kiss after that, Santa and Daniel Jones real quick.
Sure,
so listen,
you got it.
If you would have told me that the Giants, somebody would have told me, listen, it could get worse than Joe Judge. I said that's universal, impossible. That cannot happen. That could have happened in a real life. Cannot happen. Somehow it's happening. But and which is crazy. And you know what? You know what the worst part about it is? I mean, I feel bad for you guys because you guys have 7 more games to do, which is insane. It's insane. You cannot put that out. You cannot put that product on the field. I don't care if you can play with guys from the street, and it's got to be. This is high school against professional. This is not professional football.
So Wilson, let me ask you this: then, what do you want them to do then in the remaining 7 games?
You know what? What I want to do is I want somebody. I don't want no more offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. I told you this before. I don't want no more Bill Belichick guys. I don't want none of that stuff. I want something fresh. It start from scratch. Go in a different direction because Brian Dable, he won last year. We made the playoffs, and I'm
Wilson,
grateful.
hold on. Let me just bring it back to reality. Every coach, okay, if you look at everyone, even Bill Belichick has been a coordinator at some point in their careers. So when you say you don't want an offensive or defensive coordinator, no, but hold on. Wilson, I don't think you're thinking through this straight. Bill Belichick started off as a special teams guy. Then he was a defensive coordinator. So he became Bill Belichick over time. But the grunt work was done as a coordinator.
Now, Wilson, I want to be clear. You're saying you don't want any coordinators? You don't want anyone related to Belichick?
Our next head coach, we're going to have one after next year. I'm going to be proven right. I'm going to call you guys when this happens. No, I want a guy. I want a coach that actually coaches in the NFL and has some kind of success. Not like Pat Shermer that won 2 games.
You want a former, and you want a guy who's been a head coach.
So you want a former head coach. Okay, so you don't want a guy that jumps from coordinator to head coach. So you want somebody that is, for the lack of a better phrase, maybe a recycled individual who's had a previous stop elsewhere, is what you're talking about.
I'll take anybody normal right now. But listen, that's that, and you guys know how I feel about Brian Dable. And I want. Listen, and I want this guy to win, but he's not going to. But I want to ask you guys something about Daniel Jones, right, and Joe Shane.
Yeah.
I mean, is I crazy? Daniel Jones was a free agent. So Joe Shane had if he didn't like him, he didn't have to sign him. So, and technically, in reality, Daniel Jones is Joe Shane's guy. Why is everybody saying now, well, Joe Shane is going to draft his own guy? Well, Daniel Jones was a free agent. He didn't have to draft him if he didn't want to.
No, you're right about that.
Yeah, absolutely. He had the choice to
bring him back,
invest in him, or move on.
You're right about that.
That's fair.
No argument.
Right. And remember when I asked you, John, a couple of weeks ago, I said, John, tell me the truth. Was this John Mara's call and you told me no, Wilson, it was not.
Yeah,
He
it was
was
Joe Shane's
involved,
call.
but ultimately, all right. So then, am I being unfair? I don't want to hear that anymore. I don't want to hear that.
You never heard us
Not
say that, though,
Joe Shane's
Wilson.
guy.
No, Wilson. We never said that.
No, you guys. No, not you guys.
Okay.
Everybody else. The
He
media,
loves
all
his
the
sports talk
callers.
radio. I told you. See, Wilson, you cannot.
No,
you got that itchy factor. You have your thumb on the pulse of the court of public opinion. No
You're
one in
not- Lance,
society has their thumb, their index
Lance.
finger, their middle finger, their you name it, your
Lance,
pinky
you're gonna-
finger. You know what society in the trenches is talking about, and you
Lance.
bring it to the bank and you tell them
Lance.
you give me investment on every
Lance.
single statement
Lance.
and headline in the newspaper. Yes, but
Lance, you're gonna
yes.
miss me. Lance, you're gonna
I'm
miss
already
me.
missing you. I'm already. Are you kidding me? You just told me the next 7 weeks is going to be difficult for me.
Maybe I'll call the last game of the season.
Don't
just to
tease
say,
me like that, Wilson. Don't tease me. Do not tease me like that. That's not fair. You're putting me in a very precarious spot. Do you know now I'm going to be holding out hope for the next 7 games?
He's going to
for
be
your phone call.
staring at that call screen on
Are you
every
kidding me?
call now. Wilson
I'm
can say, "Is it Wilson?" Oh,
No. That's that.
Okay,
Just don't do that to me.
It's Charlie.
all
But hold on, Wilson. Wait a minute. I gotta punch a hole into your criteria earlier, okay? Because there's an
What's
important
that?
caveat. You said you don't want another Pat Shurmur. I hate to break your bubble and burst it. Pat Shurmur was a head coach with the Cleveland Browns before he
Yeah, I
came to
know.
the
He
Giants.
won 2 games.
No,
I
Shurmur-
want somebody to actually Lance, come on. This is the New York
No,
Giants.
I mean,
man.
Can,
That's right.
Wilson. In all seriousness, can you give me an example of someone that's available? That was a former head coach that had a lot of success that you would be interested in.
And Shurmur won 9 games in those 2 seasons, to be fair.
Well, combined.
Yes, come on.
Combined,
He said 2
combined,
though. He said 2
combined.
wins.
Uh,
I mean, come on.
So Wilson, seriously.
Let me see.
Yes.
Let me see. You know who I would like. I would like as a head coach for the Giants. Somebody that will bring a different light. The defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns. He was a head coach.
Jim
of the
Schwartz?
Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Jim Schwartz.
Yeah, right. And listen, it's hard to win in Detroit, but he did an okay job. Somebody like that. Listen. All kidding aside, man. I mean, Brian Dable. I don't like him personally, but I want him. I want him.
Personally,
to-
I don't
I
think
want
you
the
know.
best for him.
Okay, thank you, Wilson. Appreciate the call. I hope you don't dislike him personally. You've never met him before.
We don't need to rush to judgments on that front.
And guys, I don't think we humored Wilson there.
Oh, yeah. No. It's
This is not where
reality
we're at
versus
here.
the phone
Correct,
call are
yes.
2 different things.
Yes, obviously that right now is, in my opinion, not a conversation at all. But we wanted at least Wilson allow him to make his point, to find somebody normal this time around. I'm not sure what what that
normal.
criteria is. So what would you guys say? Goes someone normal.
Really narrowing the
And by
gap.
the way, I hate to tell you, most coaches in the NFL, by their very nature, none of these guys are that normal. I hate to tell you. Same way in broadcasting, we ain't normal either. That's why we get into this business,
Cut
right,
from
Pearson?
different
Also,
clubs.
that doesn't always work. I mean, look at Sean Payton in Denver. Like, it's not a sure thing that they'll be just as good with a different team.
No, it's not because lo and behold, you need really good players if you're a good coach in order to have success. It's funny how that works.
Talent matters. Yeah. That's the end-all, be-all factor when it comes to the National Football League. That's why, it circles back to where we started this show, where we were talking about locker room things and sideline animation and coaching.
Can you block the guys? Can you tackle the guys?
And I think the question was answered overwhelmingly based on what happened over the course of 4 quarters.
Can you catch the football? Can you prevent the other team from catching the football? I mean, it's simple, basic
I mean,
stuff.
I don't want to belabor a point, John, but I think this relates to what we're talking about right now. The play that C.D. Lamb made when Deontay Banks is hanging on to him, right?
Literally
They decline-
holding his arm.
Literally holding his
Yes.
arm. And C.D. puts out his left hand and just snags it with one hand. It still makes the catch.
It's funny. The minute that play happened, I'm watching the game with Casillas. He looks at me and goes, Schmeelk, has a Giants player made one play like that all year?
Oh. And
I'm like, well, maybe Dexter Lawrence. He's been dominant. Obviously not in that
he's
way
not running
because
routes
he's not
and
a
hitting that catch,
receiver.
sure. Yeah.
But in terms of unbelievable plays, him. But there haven't been many otherwise where guys have gone above and beyond to make these unbelievable catches or anything to make big plays and make a difference.
And John, in fairness, I mean, you could talk about seasons plural in terms of not seeing a play like that.
Yeah.
And that adds up in the long run.
And now we got to go eat some grilled cheese. It's very exciting lunch: grilled cheese and tomato soup.
Maybe Wilson could
You don't
call
get
in
much
next
better
week
than
and
that.
maybe give us some feedback on the food that these individuals are consuming in preparation for the games. We haven't talked about that narrative. I think we should put that on the agenda at some point.
You handled that Wilson phone call very well, Lance. That was actually one of your funnier handlings of a phone call that I've heard.
The durability I've built up.
That was nice.
I will pat myself on the back for that.
Good job.
Yes.
All right. Tomorrow it will be Madeline and Howard on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Then later in the week, Lance and I. This is your swap Thursday, Friday.
That's correct.
Right? So Lance will be with Casillas on Thursday. I'll get Paulie Dots on Friday, and then Paul and I on Wednesday as well. So stay tuned. Giants Little Podcast as well. Giants Hangout with Lance. Is that up yet, Pearson? That's up. Lance, Howard, and Russ. So check out the Giants Hangout podcast. It's up on your favorite podcast platform or on the Giants app. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.